sunroof open. We're dressed a little different than y'all down there today. It's a little chilly. My claim to fame, by the way, Cody went to grad school up here, so he actually was at some of my preps back in the day. A lot of people don't know that. So anyway, Kathy, thank you. It's great to see you. Congratulations. And you're in this business a long time. Sometimes you're impacting others, and sometimes you're impacted. I can share with all of you that your fearless leader impacted me in that very same way. There was a time in my career that I had lost touch with running a kick butt office, and she was the district manager that kind of was showing some of us old guys what the new business was going to be like. And so, Kathy, I took a lot from you in that stretch of your career. And, I've always admired your passion and your level of thinking and your love for just impacting people in and out of the business. And so it's amazing because when my wife had a child the age of yours, she wasn't really looking for, she wasn't running these conference calls. She wasn't running division. I'll compliment you guys as a team. Of course, I looked up some numbers, and I'm really impressed with what you all have done, really stepping up so that Kathy can enjoy this time of her life. So it means a lot. It means a lot to those of us that have been in the business a long time that you guys are supporting her. So I gave a message at a Vector East DVM meeting last week, and we do a kind of a summer kickoff together. And Earl Kelly asked me to give the same message to our pillars here in the Northeast. And Kathy said, hey, I just want you to talk about whatever you're talking about with your people. And so the message today is going to be on developing the best AM team you've ever had this summer. And obviously in any division, there's people at different levels. So I'm going to try and impact all of you. Some of you more experienced guys. It's going to be a lot of review. In fact, on the back page of the handout, you'll see something scripted from Lloyd, which you guys probably all know it by heart. So we have to type it out here because, he's your region manager. But this has been something that I've really been working on the last 2 years with DMs. And I really believe when you upgrade your staff, it really changes all the opportunity you have as a district manager, not only in the quality of life side, but what you have the ability to do as far as CPO and development coming into this year. And at this time of the calendar, I've run a district since 1997. And so if you look at February 14th, for all of those years, I would be at a different point for my summer staff at this point. And there'd be times when I was loaded and tons of experienced people and talent. And there'd be times where I would have a minimal number of people, and I'd be kind of trying to pull together some new reps to be assistant managers and you name it. I've been there. And so you guys probably all are in different boats as far as what you have going on right now for the summer. And what I've been sharing with everybody is that it doesn't really matter. What matters most is adding more candidates and how can you move all of them forward so they're better off today than they are better off in the summer than they are today. It doesn't really matter what everybody else has. It's really how can you maximize your leadership team for your summer. And you'll see I gave you a bunch of stuff. Some of the handouts, I'm not going to cover it all today, but I thought I would share more for you more experienced guys what I did as a divisional call last week. So we do a lot of Zooms during this time of the year. And I just gave you my notes. And for those of you that have a big assistant manager candidate team, you don't need Kathy to run it. You have all the notes. You can do it yourself for your own office. I also included a handout, and you wouldn't use my handout because none of them know those people, but you would be able to change up the names and use successful IMs, and it shows incomes and all that stuff. So you'll see that as some supporting handouts that you got emailed out. But most of what I'll talk about is going to be coming from the handout on building your summer staff. And so a couple of philosophies, one of which we learned from you guys, so it'll be a repeat, but to me, should be a year-round nonstop process, almost like the new key staff. Number two, as a DM, I know I didn't do this, but spend time weekly updating, reviewing your depth chart. Now as a division manager managing a pilot, literally every interview to me is an opportunity to build my AM team and thus my branch team and my district team. And literally everything I do is about operating at a higher level, because that person in that interview or in that training, whether it be 10 people in training or 2 people in training, that person could be the next big thing in my organization. And I definitely didn't have that appreciation when I was a DM at all times. It's funny. I've launched so many of my best representatives in the non-summer. So some of you guys know the name Matt Foss, and Matt Foss launched the first week of March. And what was amazing is I was going to Hawaii, and so he literally launched the seminar before the trip. I think we have some SMs on this call, so run a great training. I literally was there for a half hour. I met him, and he was in a 2-person training, and the other person was super sharp, and he was super quiet. And I remember leaving, and Kathy and some of you guys will know Emily Benham, and I pulled Emily aside. I said, listen, I know you're connecting with this girl, but this kid seems pretty good, but he seems nervous. Don't forget about him. And by the time I came back from Hawaii, he was at 5K in his fast start. I also launched his cousin April 1st, 2 years ago. He's at $274,000. He was in a 4-person training. Got another guy that launched 2 weeks before that, was in a 2-person training, sold $60,000 by September 1st. And so to me, whatever you're training today, your interview later today, your interview tomorrow, you're building your organization year round. And so that's 1 and 2. You see 4 and 5, clarity. And this might be me being kind of from a vector past, but I think now there's so many things that people can do, and any talented person can fill a leadership role in your organization. And I'm sure Kathy's been teaching you guys that. But I think for you as a district manager, you got to be clear on what each of these roles would do for you, because that's the starting point for filling them all up. And what I've been teaching is to split your group, your assistant team, into 2 groups. And the first group is the lead group. And with Kathy, you'll decide, or you've already decided, who that SM is going to be, or what I call senior assistant managers. These are people that can recruit. These are people that know how to be assistants. They were likely in TLA last fall. They were in Olean. They're a little bit more seasoned. And so that's group 1. And then everybody else. And so, and this everybody else piece, for some of you might be the bulk of your AM team, and that's fine. But it's also, for some experienced DMs, the one they forget about. Some of you know I coach Ryan Davern. He's in our division. And some of this stuff was, he reached out to me. It's like, I never really thought of it that way, because we always think about that first group, but making sure you're thinking about really staffing everything top to bottom. I think now with the concept of social media recruiting assistants, which are obviously people that schedule PRs, but that can get us into markets by sending messages. You don't have to be at anything in sales for that. So what that means is, if somebody's at $1,000 in sales, they're sharp, and you like them, well, there's a leadership role for them this summer in your organization. And so it's really just seeing a bigger picture of who can lead, and looking for opportunities for everybody to lead and move your organization forward. This message is going to end up being less about group 1, because it's easier, I think, for Kathy and you to figure out how to move that group forward, SM, senior assistants, and so forth. What I will say is your business will change when you take ownership on their development. So what I'm telling Katie and Ryan and my experienced guys is that it is up to them to make sure that they're pushing those guys and gals forward. For us, we have them ahead of our branch group, actually, for Social Jumpstart, because a couple of our branches don't have their territories yet, whereas our SMs and our senior AMs have their territory. But most of this is going to be about recruiting that next layer down, and making sure that you have a spot for them. Point 5 there just is an easy explanation of what an assistant manager is. You might be able to tell by this handout that I have the ability to overcomplicate things, and really just in listening to people like Kathy and Dane and Trey and so forth, they really have done a good job at simplifying the explanation of what assistant manager is, and so it's simply team building, leading through personal sales, and then we'll teach you some general office stuff that'll help us drive things. But have your stump speech of a simple explanation. By the way, this idea that there's a role for anyone sharp in your business is really something that the Southwest kind of pioneered. But just sometimes when I talk to DVMs, you know, they have the culture, but that doesn't mean that every DM is on it and attacking it. So because I don't know you, I don't know where each of you are with this, but again, look at people with eyes of potential. So we still have in our offices, we have one or two hired RAs or receptionists. And my best RA from last summer was one of my worst reps from last January. And she was one of those reps that it just didn't make sense that she wasn't selling. She had all the tools, really smart, really cool. Everybody loved her. And it was almost like a head scratcher that she didn't sell. And before she went back to school, I remember saying to her, and I said, listen, you know, if you don't get an internship, come back. And I said, we have all kinds of leadership positions in the office that I could tell you about. That'd be a great experience. It wouldn't involve selling. Like I had to let her know she wouldn't have to sell because she was that bad. And she came back and she worked 20 hours a week, and you know, she sent Facebook messages for us, and she scheduled people, you know, for interviews, scheduled PRs, and she ended up growing into one of the best recruiting assistants that we've ever had. And so making sure you're seeing that in people and looking for where they can help you versus looking for that perfect staff member. You know, for me, a lot of what we're talking about is just retaining people at all levels for your stuff. Another concept that I just shared this morning on my call is the idea of, when it comes to recruiting, covering all zips in your territory with people. And what I did is I listed out how my plan in the pilot is to have somebody sending messages to every zip code in our territory. And I'm aware that some territories are different. Even in my division, we have 3 or 4 offices that are from wealthy territories. And for them, I said, hey, it's 100% of the zips. I know there's a couple that are not the nicest, but we just scrape for recruits. And if you're in a territory like that, then I don't really care where they come from. Yes, I get the targeting idea, but for some of my offices, they just need more people in interviews, and that's going to help them. And then for some of you, it might be 70% of your zips. It might be 60% of your zips. I have a couple offices like that. And the idea is of all the zips you want to recruit from, whatever that is in your territory, how can you get people that are going to be messaging into all of those? And to me, it's all of your new AMs and top reps that you have right now. And so I told them to plot where all those kids live. And so I have a handful of guys that I'm pretty confident are going to be my assistant manager in trainings and my new guys going into the summer. And so I just plot them on a map, and okay, they got this town, and this girl's from this town. Perfect. So that town's taken care of. And I'm going to assume once they go through the process, they're going to be more than confident sending messages to their network. And then from there, I take my experienced guys and I break down the zips that they're going to social jumpstart into, and my Dom as well. The ones that are left, the towns that are left, I'm on a mission to find people that either hire or that I target on Instagram to send messages in those communities. And this is something that I'm really driving in our division because, you know, last year we ended up recruiting 150 in the pilot, which was up over last year, but we didn't really utilize our territory. We utilized, you know, 3-4 towns is where most of the people came from. And so now we're trying to start with more towns from the jump. And so again, every territory is different. I don't know a lot about your division and how it's laid out, but, you know, thinking about your entire territory and how to get recruits from everybody or everywhere, I got to imagine that fits everywhere. So as you think about your staff, keep in mind where they live and making sure that you're also able to get into those different zips. So back to the handout, there's a section for assistant manager process. And this was something that I added in to this workshop this year, because I think there's a lot of district managers, and I did this too, that rush to the training process, with their assistant team. And what I wanted to remind my guys of is that there's this process, and the greater their commitment is, the more you can ask them to do. And that's obvious when you say it. But I don't know that I've embodied that in my actions. And I know watching DMs and even DVMs, honestly, I see them miss this. And especially if you have newer assistants. Let's say you don't have a lot of group one, you don't have an SM, you don't have many senior assistants. Well, I know I did this, right? So Earl Kelly was a DM when I was a DM, and he was the guy everyone wanted to beat, right? And so he had an SM. And I'm sure I was trying to take somebody and make him an SM, right? Because Earl Kelly had an SM. And there's a process to get people to that level. And so you see the first 3 steps, and I've seen people miss this so much. So it's identifying the leaders that you want. It's building that relationship with them first and foremost. And then it's just making them aware of the opportunity. These 3 things are what create commitment. And then as their commitment grows, now you can add in more and more of the training. And so that's kind of the concept there. By the way, for identification, I think this I might be preaching to the choir on this one, but I have people on my assistant manager development list that are at $1,000 in sales. And so I think you guys are there on that. But I have a guy who's super positive, worked for a week, sold $1,000, got his wisdom teeth out. I haven't talked to him since, but his PRs were amazing. And everybody that I launched that were his PRs just talks about how amazing this kid is. I don't know what he's going to do for my office this summer, but he's going to do something. Like, he could work 2 other jobs, and he's going to be a social media. He's going to send messages. He's going to work with me somehow. And so obviously I have my more experienced people over 20 and 30 and 40 in sales. And of course they're assistant manager candidates, but again, on your list should be anybody that you want to build with. And this is Amara Fasto. Some of you may not remember that name, but she always said when she gave development talks, is anybody that I want to work with more than 2 weeks, I'm going to start talking to them about assistant manager, about key staff, about leadership. And she just, it didn't matter what they sold. If she wanted to work with them and she could see them being leaders, she had no problem talking to them. As we go, then there's the follow-up application. And finally we get to training. But I'm really trying to get my guys to not overdo the training until they get the commitment. So I'll pause there. I have a couple thoughts on follow-up calls. I have a couple thoughts on training. But training's, I could do a whole call on training AMs, if you guys know that. But let me pause here. Is there any questions, anything that you guys would want me to expand on? Am I good? Keep going. Anything of value?
Great stuff. Keep going.
Keep going. Love it. The follow-up, and this is hot off the press because I just added this in today. So no one in Vector East has heard this except my guys this morning. I'm listening to Start With Why, that Simon Sinek, and it's kind of an older book, but I never got to it before. And I've been on this thing of clarity and like, what are you building, right? The why you're doing what you're doing, the big why, right? And so, there are 3 things in the follow-up stage that I want to try and accomplish as I'm talking to somebody. So generally by follow-up, they've already are aware of the opportunity. So either they've been on an official call, they learned all about our leadership, or I've had a one-on-one call with them and they're aware. And the big 3, is number one, that you're excited to have them on the team. And again, this might be obvious for some of you, but I was joking with the pillars that I am so comfortable with rejection at this point of my life that I don't really care if I say, hey, I'm really excited to have you on the team. I really want to build with you. And they're like, no, and I never talk to again. I'm totally fine with that. And so I'm not afraid to share that I really am excited to build with you. I'd love to have you on my leadership team for the summer, or now if they're local, but you guys get the point. So hey, I'd be excited to have you. Make sure you're clear on that. I don't know what your exact role would be, but I'm excited to have you on my leadership team. We're going to build something amazing. Number two is why it would benefit them. And this is a step that I've missed at times. And you'll see if you read through the assistant manager application that I sent you, the one I use has all kinds of stuff that will help me know them a little bit better so that I can lead them a lot better. So why it would benefit them? Hey, I also think for you, you'd get a lot out of it. And then you just lay out why that is. You're going to be an attorney. Well, where are you going to learn how to public speak? In my leadership team, you're going to be in front of people all the time. You're going to be speaking at meetings. You're eventually going to learn the interview. Heck, you might even run parts of training. So your courtroom presence is going to change this summer. Here's what else you're going to get out of it, And so making sure you're laying out why it's going to benefit them. And then number three is your vision of what you're creating. And it doesn't have to be, and it probably shouldn't be, super long and super overwhelming and all of that. But just, your why. And hey, here's what we're going to create as a leadership team this summer. And then you just kind of spew what you're going to create, and that could be, I'm on a mission, last summer I was one of the new guys. But this summer we're going to compete. We're going to put together the biggest team that blank territory has ever seen. Right. That guy, Cody Rose, right down the road, we're going to compete with him. We're going to build a team so big. Right. And so you start sharing this vision between them knowing you believe in them, them being clear on how it's going to benefit them, and them getting excited about what you're building. It really is a strong, retention tool. Again, no matter who they are. You could take out assistant, and if it's a social media recruiting assistant, you can add that back in and how that's going to benefit them. And so anyway, that's the follow up, and that'll lead them to more commitment. For me, my philosophy with the assistant manager application is all my group one people. I want them to fill it out before I go to Paris. That's my timeline. It helps me know if I have them locked in. So it helps me with my planning process. But for us in our timeline, for the new group, we have an event in the middle of March. And usually for them, that's when I'm going to have, after that is when I have them do the AM application. And so you'll see it's 14 questions. I don't want to overwhelm somebody until I know they're like totally ready to fill it out. By the way, I could see the philosophy of making it shorter and making it a little less overwhelming. And I've done that before. In fact, for years, I didn't have an application. If they were interested, I was like, you got it. But this particular application has helped me with a lot of success, come up with a schedule plan and whatnot that really fits them. And it's saved me a lot of time in the summer. And then the only other thing there is retention through finals. And there's a point where I don't really need them to do anything. I just need them to show up to their first day of work. And so just remember that every, a lot of students get stressed during finals, and if you have to let them off the hook, it really, at that point, to me, it doesn't really matter. By then they already kind of are clear on what their role is going to be. They've been trained a little bit. They're tied in. And so we just want to get them through finals. The one thought I did have there, though, is don't underestimate that some of them might be a little nervous to sell. And I would assume they're all nervous. 2 years ago, I had a guy, Spencer, who sold 47 grand in his first summer, and I mean, when I say he picked it up faster than almost anybody had ever seen, so you'd assume that guy was confident in selling, but it went so well. When I was talking to him about being an assistant, I could sense that he was a little nervous about what he was going to sell. Like, in his mind, it was like it almost couldn't go that well, right? And so if the guy that sold 47,000 was nervous, you got to assume that everybody is, right? And so then I started telling that story, and so I started saying, hey, so by the way, if you're a little nervous to what you're going to sell this summer, don't worry about it. Everybody is, and here's what they find: once you follow the process of us setting you up for your second summer, everybody sells more. And then I tell the story of Spencer. Guys, he was at 47,000 and he was nervous. So it's okay that you're nervous, and speak to it before they bring it up to you. And we have so many tools now of getting people restarted, whether it be, we know how to reach back out to their old customers, whether it be service call training, if they're high enough in sales. I mean, there's so many things that can help people go, that I feel really confident saying to them, everybody sells more their second break, let's say, or their second summer, or their, right. And so that's the process. Hopefully that helps. You'll see some text message in there. They're pretty plug and play. You guys know the personality, so of course you would tweak it up a little bit, but I think the goal of the text message is to get them on the phone, and so you'll see that there. And it's always positive, and it's always trying to understand where they could be, and you guys know that you can misread text very easily, so it's important to make sure they know you're not mad, you're not hawking them, all that stuff. And so raise your text game. Some of you might need to raise your text game. I know these are super long, but these are people I have relationships with, no big deal. And then as we get to the commitment, so now fast forward a little bit, you have the team committed, and some of the people, this might be a conversation you have now if they're already committed. I have a handful of those. But now you have commitment, and it's time to set expectations of really attacking team building. And 2 years ago, Dane kind of just, it wasn't even a major part of his message, but he kind of just modeled how he talks about team building with his staff. And so I just kind of scripted it, and I filled in a couple words from me, but it'll get the job done. And there was a couple of things that I liked about this. And the first is this notion of, what if we cloned each of you 10 times? So we're going to have 7 assistant managers this summer. What if we cloned each of you 10 times? That would be 70 reps, John. 70 reps. 70. How much fun would that be? And he starts first painting the picture of what that would do. Guys, we wouldn't even need anybody else. We still would recruit other people, but we literally wouldn't need them, because we would have this core, and our AM's job is to be in charge of supercharging the summer. I love that line. And then he kind of starts to mold them into confidence with team building to get to that next level. If I talk to people above your grade and below your grade, I bet you 95% of them would say you're a great kid, right? And you probably were in groups, and you had friends that were, athletes, and you had friends that were, that were in band, right? You were just well-rounded. You do right by people, right? You treat people well. You're positive, right? Is that you? Yeah, that's the type of person that's a great team builder. And you're somebody that can build around, and you're going to have a blast, because you're going to be working with a bunch of your friends and people and we're going to teach you how to do it. So part of our AM training is going to teach you the skills here, but you're going to be great at it. And then one of the points he made is obviously different reps. Excuse me. Different launches experience different levels of success. Love you too, Stephen. Lot of have different experience with their own PRs coming out of training, right? And the point Dane made was we want to eliminate that, right? So if one of these people is somebody whose friends gave them more flack, and or a couple of them interviewed and they didn't show to training and they didn't really have success with their initial PRs, his point was you don't want them to show up to the team building process thinking that. And so pretty strongly states, and just so you know, your ability to be a great team builder has nothing to do with how many people ended up working with us from your initial list. And then he talks about hit or miss and how their success would influence their friends. And so now what you're doing is you're molding them into being more open to the team building process. And this all starts before we start asking for messages, top 50 list, whatever you do for AMPRs, which mine and Dayton's program on that are exactly the same, because he's been on our PR task force for years teaching us how to do it. So we have that too. The last piece on there, I always give credit, right, is your guy, Lloyd. And it was kind of cool. He just kind of, Kathy, you might remember this. It was at SLC. I don't even think his talk was about this. And he just started, guys, this is easy. And he just kind of off the cuff did this. And again, I just kind of scripted as much as I could, because this is an area my team has to get better. And what's cool about this is that you could have nobody right now. And over the next 2 months of recruiting, you could go into the summer, maybe not with the most experienced AM team, so they might not be running trainings and interviews for you, but you have enough time to get, 7 to 10 sharp, excited people around you that can help you build the team in May. And you'll figure it out. You have a great team in May, you'll figure out all the rest. And so it doesn't matter where you are, you can build on the staff. So that's what I had to cover. If there's any questions on anything or anything you need to repeat or any follow-up, I have time. I told Kathy I'm hers as long as she needs me today.
Could you go through the Lloyd part out loud just so they can hear it?
Sure.
And so we have it on video. That'd be awesome.
Couldn't we get Lloyd to do it?
Come on.
All right. Hey, Steven, I got a guy, Steven. This is why you gotta run great training every week. He sold 8,300 in his fast start. He's a full-time student. Steven, hey, I just wanted to talk to you about something. I want to let you know I'm impressed with what I've seen from you in a short period of time. I know it's only been 2 weeks at this point, but I just want you to know we have programs for people like yourself who are already great leaders when they get here and pick things up very quickly. The first step, we're looking for leaders. You're probably aware that we're trying to fill some of our leadership positions with newer people because it makes it a lot easier for the current reps that we bring on board to relate to that staff. And it's great to have really experienced assistants, which we have, but I love to reserve spots for people that are just really great reps because there's the ability for the new people to relate. Now you're probably thinking, are you really talking to me about assistant manager? I've been here for 2 weeks. I barely have my clothes memorized. I'm not even totally comfortable phoning yet. But I am. And things are great and we're building a bigger team and we need people to help. And I want you to continue to succeed. And so part of it is I just want to commit to you extra focus and some extra phone jams and make sure I'm talking to you a little bit more to help you achieve your goals. And as you continue doing that, let me ask you this, let's fast forward a week or two, you've gotten some more success. You stop by training and you help me, check people in the training and you give some tips or maybe you help out with the phone jam. You remember how some of the trainees were a little nervous making phone calls, and you're there saying, hey, don't worry about it. Keep going, keep going. Once you get your fourth or fifth, it'll get easy. So, help with that, or even giving a team meeting speech to help people kind of learn some of the stuff that you're doing. So that's really what our initial assistants do. We call it assistant manager in training, and really they just help new reps. And as somebody progresses, there's additional stuff they learn how to do. But you help build a team, you lead in sales, but it's a great opportunity. So would this be something that you might be interested at some point? Again, we're not talking about a ton of hours. In fact, if you were in just a couple hours a week extra around phoning, we could get it done in that time. Is this something that you might have an interest in some point? And then the follow-up is there. If yes, pick a first shift. And in that shift, and this is my addition, make sure they're doing / seeing exciting stuff. And ideally something like with you. And you guys know the fun stuff for people to learn. And so just bring them in for that. And it'll be beneficial. By the way, I've been doing a 3-week trial. I don't know where I got this. Might've been Lloyd years ago. And I say, hey, and one of the things we do is for assistant managers in training, we do a 3-week trial. And in 3 weeks, if you're not loving it and it's not allowing you to hit your sales goals, and then we can take you off, no big deal. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way, because it's been a really long time since it has. But if you get a chance to be assistant manager in training and it's not ideal for now, we can take you off and revisit it in the future. So no big deal. And what that allows you to do, I think, is follow back up in 3 weeks. And if they're not selling enough, you can take them off and make sure they're selling. And it also allows them to, gives you more flexibility. So you can add somebody on for 3 weeks and then take them off, add somebody else on, so it really helps you develop it over time.
Awesome. Love it. So takeaways and/or questions. I'd love to hear some takeaways.
Real quick, Ryan, when you give them the application for the assistant manager, just kind of piggyback off what you last said about you give them like a 3-week trial. Is this application that you give them, is this like after that 3-week trial or sometime during, like when they're AMITs, that's what we call them when they're in the training process. When do you give them that AM application?
So I think I would give them that after the AMIT process.
And that's your 3 weeks, kind of the trial period that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could be in 2 weeks if they're doing a great job. But I think based on your timing, I wouldn't make them fill out a 14-question application. I think you're perceiving it correctly. I wouldn't make them fill out that application just for this type of person that's just coming in to help out a couple hours a week.
And then also, the greater the commitment, the is like more will get them. Like you said, you talked about like the greater the commitment, the more we can ask them to do things, especially like around the office and things like that. That was huge. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And then splitting up the AMs into 2 categories is obviously your number 1 category is a little bit more top heavy. I'm sorry, your number 2 your number 2 AMs are going to be like the more top heavy, right? You're only going to have like your top 2 or 3 people, more as your number 1, correct? And those are do you work with them a little bit more because you only work with like your top people, correct?
Are you speaking as division manager or what I would do as a district?
As a district manager, yeah. Sorry.
So the distinction between the two, I think, is most important in regards to the stuff you ask them to do to prepare for the summer. So like one of my group 1 guys went through all of our TLA in the fall but he plays basketball, and the amount of time he had over winter break, like he literally was home for a week and then he went back for basketball. And he's a sharp kid, wants to run a branch, but it's just he's one of my AMs, and so I had the conversation with him. You know, you got the job. I'm still going to have you fill out assistant manager application just for a formality. But from my end, you're in. Are you in? He's like, I'm in. Like totally excited. Now I can ask him to do more for summer prep. So he's doing the social jumpstart videos. He's got zip codes, right? So the distinction is that for the summer prep stuff, whereas the other group, we're not really doing social jumpstart, like the official social jumpstart with the new guys, because I don't want them to be working on that at school until they're totally tied in and they have that commitment. Yeah. So right now I'd say in the pilot, my top group's like 5, and then we have another 15 candidates on the bottom group. So yeah, if you're open-minded and you're just looking at it like who can lead, you will have more in your second group than your first group.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else? Well, Ryan, I really appreciated this because this was just good to remember. One of the things that you guys, I want to make sure you're all doing is from the first handout of just having an ongoing list year round. You know, like, are you keeping a list? I know at one point we've done that and I was like, hey, let me have your list. But I didn't do a good job of making sure to follow up as a DVM and say, hey, have we updated it or whatever? And I think it's really important for everyone to own that process. And I need to do a better job of looking at that every month, you know, not just when it's time for a new campaign, but it makes a really big difference. We've been talking a lot about that in the pilot office right now of like, you know, what are the layers? It's not like, oh, we have 7 AMs, we're good. It's like, hey, who's next in line? Like, who's in the pipeline? Like every week we should be promoting 1 or 2 people to AMIT. You know, they're not all going to make it. They're not all going to stick around. And if they do, that's a great problem and I'll handle it, you know? But every week, are we promoting, you know, 1 or 2 people at a minimum that, you know, are here from the week or 2 before, you know? And are we having those conversations even in the interview? We're looking to fill management positions, you know, anyone who's interested in that, you know, write an M on the top of your application. That way we know to talk to you more about it. When they're coming into training, you know, are we talking about it? Do they know that there is opportunity for advancement like right away? If they're doing the right things, they have the right attitude, they're working hard. And Ryan, I loved from a DVM standpoint, and this is something that we can integrate for this next month, but it's something you guys can also do with people from last summer that you want to corral and have a call with, is like the outline that you have for the call you had last week is awesome. So really excited about using some of this information that you shared with us. So I appreciate it a ton.
No problem. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, if nobody else has any questions, Ryan, thank you again so much for taking time out of your day. I really appreciate it. As Mama over here is half delirious, so I appreciate you bringing some goods here this morning to our guys, to our team, as we're building for this summer. So thank you. Appreciate you.
We'll talk soon. Take care, guys. I'll see many of you in 2 weeks.
Yep. See ya.